Hey y'all, welcome to part 10 of the Vectric version 12 Plus for Absolute Beginners video series. In this video, we're going to concentrate on these three icons right here in the Create Vector section. I'm going to demonstrate drawing a line or polyline, drawing an arc, and the freehand drawing tool. Now, although I'm demonstrating this in Aspire version 12.010, everything I'm going to show you works exactly the same way in Cut 2D Desktop and Pro, VCarve Desktop and Pro, and Aspire. So the first tool we're going to use is right here, Draw Line and Polyline. So I'll click this icon and we'll go into the Create Line Polyline form. Now, this looks rather complex up here and down here. There are a lot of instructions that will help down here. But overall, the easiest way to draw a line is to just come out onto the material in the workspace here and take a look at the cursor. We see a bunch of angular lines at the top, a set of crosshairs just below that, and an XY readout. And this is reading the current cursor position at the crosshairs in absolute coordinates. So the easiest way to draw a line is simply put that crosshair in the position where you want to start your line and click. Now you can see I'm kind of dragging a line behind the cursor, and I'll put that cursor where I want my endpoint to be and click. Now that has placed a point, and you notice I'm still got a line connected. That's because I can continue this line and create a polyline. Now let's define the difference between a line and a polyline. I'm going to end this line and accept this span right here. And all I need to do that is press my space bar. And that ends the line. Let me close the tool here. Now what we have here is a line. We know it's a line because if I go into node editing mode by pressing the letter N on my keyboard, I have a start point and I have an end point. That's all I need for a line. I'll press N to come out of node editing. Now we'll go back into the tool. A polyline has a start point, and I'll create a start point by clicking. And I'll come up in a similar fashion and click again. Now I still have my line connected. And if I need to come down in this direction, I can click again. Then I can come over here and click again. Now I'll press the space bar and close the window. This is still one line. However, if I go into node editing, I have multiple points. My start point is here, my end point is here, and I have multiple points along this line. This is a polyline. Now, a polyline doesn't have to be in this shape. It can be in any shape. It can be straight, it can be rectangular. The difference between a line and a polyline is the number of points. A regular line has a start point and an end point, and a polyline has more points between the start point and the end point. Tap N to come out of node editing. Now, that's the easiest way to draw a line. There are other ways to draw a line as well. For instance, if you need precision, if you need your start point to be in a specific place, that's when we can come up and use the next point section. Now, we can still click out here and insert a start point. But if I want my start point to be at x -2, y -2, I can come down here and try to get my cursor in that position, but my best bet is to come up here. So if I come up to x -2, y -2, then I click add, it's put my start point right here. If we look at my cursor position right here, I'm at x -2, y -2. Now, if that's where I want my line to start, and I don't have a specific destination in mind, I can bring this anywhere and just click, press the space bar, and end that line. Let me Control Z to undo that. I've got my x -2, y -2. I click add, and there's my start point. If I know that I want my next point to be at x +2, y -2, out here somewhere, I can go x +2, y -2, then click add, and it created that line. But I still have a line attached. If this is as far as I need to go, I can press the space bar, and you'll hear that alarm. It doesn't work. What I'll need to do, if I'm using this next point form, is click the finish button, and that finishes that line. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're clicking out here to create your lines, you can use the space bar to end that line. If you're using the form, you will need to click finish to end that line. Let me close this, and we'll select both of these vectors and delete. Again, let's pay attention down here to the cursor position, because this works whether we're using the create line form or we're clicking out here. For instance, if my start point is over here somewhere and I click, look at the center line under cursor position. It's telling me that I'm moving at a 180-degree angle from this point to a length of currently 2.9 inches. I can come up here and I can get 3 inches right there if that's what I want. And I can click. Now there's another easy way of doing this. If I know I want to come up here 90 degrees and I want to go up 2 inches, I can just type 2 and tap enter, and it's going to insert that next point 2 inches above. Look at the cursor position. If I'm coming over this direction, I can come over here 3 inches and click. And that's put me even with this point right here. I'm going to show you a shortcut. If I want to close this vector, there are 2 ways I can do it. One is I can come down here and you see how my vector turned into a crosshair. And you see how I've got that square inside that crosshair. If I click, I've created a closed vector. And just to confirm, I can come over here to join open vector, and it says right here, it is a closed vector. And I'll Control Z to undo that. Another way of creating a closed vector is to start my start point there, come over here, come down here, come out here, and we're going to use smart snapping. And I'll get further into smart snapping in future videos. But smart snapping is a way to snap two other points along a line, such as this. I just put my cursor over this start point to kind of wake up this point, and now I can drag straight down until I'm at a 90 or a 180 degree angle from the last point. And you can see those guides. I'm right in line with that point, that first point I entered. Then I can click and then pull my cursor straight up. And then to close this vector, I just tap the tab key. And it closes that vector. So I don't even actually need to find that point. Just hit tab and it finds it and closes it automatically. Now, what are the benefits to doing it this way versus using one of these icons up here to draw a rectangle, for example, or draw a polygon? Well, the advantage is you can get into some out of the ordinary shapes. For example, I want to draw a odd-shaped triangle. I've clicked to get my start button, and I come down here at a 60-degree angle, -60. Click, come up here at a 71.5-degree angle. Click, and then just pull towards that point and press tab. This angle may or may not be easy to draw within the polygon tool. I can click here, come way over here, click, come up here, click, come down this direction, and tab. This kind of a polygon could be difficult to make with the standard polygon tool. So that's the benefit of drawing closed vectors using the Draw Line Polyline tool. In addition to using this top of this form here to set X and Y coordinates, I can click here and then come up into my form and I can set an angle. I can set an angle of 20 degrees and a length of 3 inches. Then click Add, and from that start point it is drawn a 3-inch line at an angle of 20 degrees from that point. Now, if I want to come straight up, again, I can pull straight up and look for 1 inch, for example. If I want to draw another point relative to this point here, that's where these two measurements come in. These are delta X and delta Y. The D stands for delta. This coordinate position is relative to this last point. So if I want my next point to be 1 inch over positive in X, I'll type D1, and I want it to be a 1/2 inch down in Y. I'll type -0.5. Then click the Add button, and it's created a new point that is 1/2 inch down in Y and 1 inch over in X. Again, finish. Now there's one more thing to show you here, and this works when you're out here drawing. And that is, you click for your start point. Click for another point. Click for another point. Click for another point. If you make a mistake, I didn't want to click right there, my finger slipped, or that was the wrong place, I can, as long as I haven't hit space or touched finish, as long as I'm still connected, I can tap my backspace key on my keyboard and it will remove that point. And I can keep removing points all the way to the very beginning if I choose to. So I can click to make a point, click to make a point, click to make a point, and then backspace if I made a mistake. Now, within the Draw Line Polyline tool, we also have the ability to draw curves. In previous versions of the software, we had a separate Draw Curve tool down here. That has since been removed, and drawing curves is now incorporated within the Draw Line Polyline tool. And we can draw a curve in a couple of different ways. No matter what we're using, we need to first have a start point. So we'll click here to have a start point. And you can see by my cursor, I'm drawing a straight line. If my next point is right here, but I want this to be a curve, I will click and hold my mouse button, then drag towards my next point, and you can see how this creates a curve. And I can adjust that curve in whatever direction I'm going to go to. Then move to my next point, and you can see I'm still creating a curve. Then click and hold and create that curve. Then if I want this next line to be a straight line, I just click, and that is a straight line. And I can move back up in this direction, click Tab on the keyboard, and it will join up and close that vector. Now, there is also a way of staying full-time within that draw curve, so that from the initial point you're drawing curves, and that is to just, before you even set your first point, just tap the letter S on the keyboard, and you see how my cursor changes to curves above the crosshair. So now all I need to do is click, and then come over here and click, and we see we're drawing curves. Click, come back around this way, click, come over here, click, then move in that direction, and click Tab, and we see I have drawn curves. The software will also remember what mode you were last drawing in. So if I come over here and close this, then let's say I draw a circle inside, then close that, click off. I can come back into my Draw Line Polyline tool, and when I get out here on my material, I am still drawing curves. I can click, 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 Tab. If I want to switch over, I'll Control Z to undo that. If I want to switch over to drawing straight lines, again, I can tap the S button, and I'm now drawing straight lines. But I still have the option of clicking and holding and drawing a curve. And again, the software will remember the last mode I was in. This is true even if I were to close out of this session. I am currently drawing straight lines. If I tap the letter S to where I'm drawing curves, I can close this and even close this session of the software. And the next time I go into my Draw Line Polyline tool, it will remember I was drawing curves. That's how we draw lines or polylines or curves within the 2D view. When we go over to the 3D view, not a lot has changed. However, we have a little bit of a difference in our readout. I'm currently drawing curves. I'm going to tap the letter S so that I'm drawing lines. And we can see I have my XY readout the same as within the 2D view. And the tool works the same way. I can click my start point, but now we see a field open up. Instead of my readout telling me the angle It's simply telling me the length. And I can move in any direction. But again, look at my cursor position. And let's pay attention to the angle here. I can move to a 30-degree angle, for example. And if I want a 4-inch line here, I can just type 4, tap enter, and I've entered a new point on a 30-degree angle from this point, 4 inches long. So the only real difference is the readout. And again, it's giving me a length from the last point. It's giving me a relative length. Again, look at the center line of my cursor position. I'm moving at a 135-degree angle, and the length is 3.9 inches. Now, I can keep going at that angle, and you see how the start point lights up down there on my first line. I come off of it, there's no start point. I come back onto it, I'm even with the start point. I can click, then I can come down and just press the tab button, and there is my closed vector. So the main difference between the 2D view and the 3D view is this readout on the cursor. Again, I can click for a start point, come out here, whatever length I'd like, click and hold, and I'm drawing a curve. And I can set that curve the way I want it. And come to my next point, click and hold. And I can adjust that curve the way I want it. Go to the next point, click and hold, and go to the next point. Release. Then I can either come to this point, or I can press tab, and it closes that vector. And I have a closed vector here, and I have a closed vector here. Again, I'll delete these two. If I go into the Create Line Polyline tool, come out on my material, and tap the letter S, I'm now drawing curves full time. So I can just click, 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 and tab, and I've drawn curves. And I'm still within the curve function. To go back to straight lines, I tap the letter S again, and I'm back into straight lines. So that's how to draw lines and polylines within the 2D view and the 3D view. And the next tool we're going to take a look at is the Draw Arc tool. Now, there are two ways that we can draw an arc. One, and the easiest, is through 3 points. Now, the way we draw an arc using this method is to come down to any position within our workpiece, and I'll click once to set a start point. Now, you can see that I'm dragging a line, much like within the Draw Line or Polyline tool. And what I'll do is I'll bring it over here to my proposed endpoint. Then I'll click to set that line. And now, when I come back out here, all I need is to place my radius somewhere. I got to place a center point, and that's going to determine the radius of my arc. So let's say I want it about right here. I can click, and I've created an arc. Now let me Control Z. If we want more specific points, I can come over here and use this portion of the form. Now here I can set an X position. So let's say I want this at -2, Y 0. I can now create an endpoint. And let's say I want that at +2, Y0. Now I can set my height here. I can either set a height or I can set a radius. What do I want the radius of this arc to be? Or do I want a specific height? Let's say I want 1 inch. Now I can click Create, and it's going to draw that arc. Then I can take a look over here and I can see that with these settings, that height is going to give me a radius of 2.5 inches. Then I can close and carry on with the rest of my design. That's using through 3 points. Let's go to the next. And that is the center, start, and end. What we're going to do is we're going to place our rotation center first, then we're going to place our start point and our end point. So if I put my rotation center here at x0, y0, and I come out this way, you can see that I'm starting to draw, I'm looking at a circle, and that circle represents the radius of what I'm going to draw, the radius of that arc. Now we can see I'm moving at an angle of 180 degrees from my start point, and we can see what the radius is. 3.5, 3.48. We can see what that proposed radius is going to be. Now I can do this by eye, or I can use my form over here. So if I come up here by eye and I say I want, that's about the size of the arc I want. This is my start point. I click, and now I can either come down this direction to set my stop point, or I can come back around in this direction. But notice whenever I get to directly opposite my start point, it switches to the other side. So that's something to be aware of. If I come down here and decide that I want this 90-degree angle, I'll just click, and there is my arc. The thing to remember in all of this is, no matter if you're going for your center, start, and end, or you're going through 3 points, Control Z to undo that arc. When you place your start point, then your end point, the max radius can only be half of what your length is. So let me Control Z to undo. Well, let me go ahead and create this arc, and we'll Control Z to undo that. I come out here to 2 point, let's go with an X of negative 2.5, negative 2.5, Y0, and my end point is positive 2.5. Or my height can be a maximum of half of my line length. Let's create that. And what we have here is a radius that's equal to half of my line length. I have a 5-inch line. I cannot go any further than half of that, which is 2.5. I can go less. I can go 1.5, click apply, and that's fine. But if I try to set it at more than half of this length, if I go for 3, my apply button gets grayed out. I can't apply that because it's greater than half of my line length. So the most I can go is 2.5. My apply button comes back. So we jump over into the 3D view. Click and go into drawing an arc, we have the same choices. Again, I can click to start and click to end, and now I can set my height. But again, I'm restricted to half of my line total length. And I can go in the positive direction, I can go in the negative direction. But again, I can't go further than half of my line length. Control Z and center, start, and end. I'll go to my X0, Y0, and we see the guides pop up for that. That's my rotation center. We'll come out, and I'll start up here, and we'll work around this way until I get to 180 degrees, and there's my arc. So there is no difference in the 3D view versus the 2D view. So that's how we draw an arc using both methods within the 2D view and the 3D view of the Vectric software. Now, the last tool we're going to demonstrate in this video is something that's relatively new to the Vectric software, and that is freehand drawing. So I'll go ahead and I'll click the freehand drawing tool, and we don't have a lot of options here, but the options we do have are variable. So we're going to get into this and play with it just a little bit. Now, we see when I come out here onto the workspace, my cursor is a simple crosshair. Both my stabilize and my smoothness are toward the center. Now, if I click and hold my left mouse button, we see I have a circle there. Now I'm going to start moving my mouse, and we can see that I have a line forming. Now, it's subtle, but it's there. If you look at the difference in the line that I'm drawing, you can see that the darker portion of the line starts in the center of that circle. There is a line from my cursor crosshairs to the center of the circle, but it's a little bit lighter shaded gray. If I keep going here, you can see that this line is being drawn from the center of the circle. Now I'm going to come to a stop, then let go of my mouse button, and we see that my vector is nowhere near the center of that cursor. That's because the line being drawn is being drawn from the center of that circle. And I can make any organic shape that I want out here. Just freehand drawing. Now I do have an option over here with this check mark, and that is end the vector at the cursor. So we'll click on that, come over here, and we'll see that I'm still drawing the line based on the center of that circle. But if I come over here to this vector and I let go, the line ends where my cursor crosshair was. Now, that does not join these two vectors. It just gives me a representation of where I ended this line and where I started that line. But again, my line ends where my cursor is because of this check mark. Now, I can turn that off, and again, the line is going to end not where my cursor is, but where the center of that circle is. Now, there are some advantages to using the freehand drawing tool for creating organic shapes, but it's most commonly used in tracing a bitmap. Now, I have imported a bitmap, and I'll just turn that bitmap on, and we can see we have a mandala here. Now, click on this bitmap to select it, and that's an important point. Before you go into freehand drawing, you need to select the bitmap. Then come into my freehand drawing tool. Now, you'll see the bitmap fades a little bit. that can be controlled right here. I can fade it out real faint, or I can turn up and reduce the amount of fading in it so that I can see these lines I'm going to trace real clearly. Or if they're getting in my way, I can fade it down and then start tracing on the inside of this circle, for example. Now, again, this is an open vector. However, I still have other controls that I can use. Start drawing inside of this circle here. Come back around to the inside. And when I get down here, I can click the tab button and it will join that vector. I now have a closed vector here. Now, the only real options that we have within the freehand drawing tool are the smoothness and the stabilization. We'll get into the smoothness first. And the smoothness basically dictates the number of points that are going to be placed within this vector that we're going to draw. So, for example, I've got my smoothness set way down low. It's going to be less smooth, meaning it's going to place a lot more points. If I move it all the way up to maximum smoothness, it's going to draw a lot fewer points. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to move all the way down to no smoothness, come out here, and I'm going to trace these two circles because they're almost identical in size and shape. So with my smoothness set to the minimum, I'll click on this circle and I'll start drawing. And I'll come around the inside. And we're working just fine. It's creating a faithful representation of that circle. Now I'll press the tab key and we've closed that circle. Now I'm going to adjust my smoothness over to the maximum, and I'll come over here to this circle and I'll do exactly the same thing. I'll start drawing my circle, come around to the inside, and press tab. Now, if I close the tool, click off of the bitmap to deselect it, I can come over here to these two circles, select this one, and select this one, and we'll tap the letter N on the keyboard to go into node editing. And we can see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points. But over here, I have only 3. Now, I can still manipulate these points to give me a smoother looking circle, but there are fewer points in this circle than there are in this one. So setting the smoothness to a higher level reduces the number of points. Setting to a lower level increases the number of points. This can come in handy when you're doing more angular shapes. For instance, if I were going to draw in here, having more points would help me to add this curve into an otherwise angular vector. So let me adjust this back down to the center. The stabilize will smooth out any jitters or false movements that I happen to make with my mouse while drawing. So let's take my stabilize all the way to the minimum. And I'm going to come over here to this corner right here. And I'm going to start drawing this shape to the inside of this vector. And we can see that as I draw with my mouse, any jitter or any shake of my hand while I'm drawing is represented in this vector. But if I bring my stabilize back up to the maximum and I start over here, we see, number one, that circle around my cursor is big. That's letting me know what level of stabilization I have here. And again, we're drawing from the center of that stabilization circle. And we can see that the entire vector is a lot smoother. So when I get in here, zoom in real close, we can see how shaky this vector looks. I've got a sharp angle there and a sharper angle here and a sharper angle there, where my hand was shaking as I drew the vector. Whereas if I have the stabilization turned way up, it's nice and smooth. There are no sharp angles here. Now, obviously, you'll want to adjust these to suit the pattern that you're drawing or to suit the style that you want to achieve. If you are creating something that you want a more rustic look, you may want to turn your stabilization way down and your smoothness way down so you get more of a jagged representation. And you notice how small that circle is now because I have the stabilization turned down. If I let go, bring my stabilization up, and start from here, you can see how much bigger that circle is. As it is stabilizing the vector being drawn, it's less sensitive to little micro movements of my hand. And I'm getting a much smoother result. So, this, again, is the only adjustment we can make to the bitmap. We have to select the bitmap before we go into our tool in order to use bitmap fading. So now I can fade the bitmap. The reason I couldn't before was because I went into the freehand drawing tool, but there was no bitmap selected. So I have to select that bitmap before I go into my freehand drawing tool. In the 3D view, the freehand drawing tool works exactly the same way. The only difference is you'll need to come up here to click on this control right here to turn on your bitmap. If I go into my freehand tool, again, I did not select the bitmap before coming into the tool, so I can't fade it. But I can still come in and trace it. Let me move my smoothness up to about the center. And because my hands are always jittery, I'm going to leave my stabilization up and trace that inner light gray circle. Again, close the tool, select the bitmap. Now I can open the tool and I can fade my bitmap as I see fit. So, that's how to use the freehand drawing tool within the 2D or 3D view within the Vectric software. So, that's how to draw a line or polyline, draw an arc, and how to use the freehand drawing tool in both the 2D view and the 3D view within the Vectric software. It should also be mentioned that all three of these tools work with either a mouse or a tablet in pen. The tablet and pen comes in very handy when you're using the freehand drawing tool if you happen to have a tablet and pen. But just know a tablet and pen are not required to use the freehand drawing tool. All three of these tools, just like any other tool out here in the Design tab, works perfectly well with a mouse. So, I know there's no way I answered every question you're going to have about using any of these tools or these tools within the Vectric software. So, this afternoon at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, I'll be hosting a live Q&A session where you can ask me any question you'd like about anything I've demonstrated in this video or any of my previous videos. Again, that's this afternoon at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on my YouTube channel, and I've put a link to that live Q&A session down in the description box of this video. Before we wrap this up, I'd like to give a special shout out and say a special thank you to all of my channel members. Thank you, channel members. I appreciate your continued support. If you would like information on how to become a channel member, just click that little join button at the bottom of this video panel. A panel will pop up and a video will play that'll tell you all about channel membership. So, I hope to see you this afternoon for the live Q&A session. And as always, whether you subscribe to my channel or not, whether you become a channel member or not, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to watch, and y'all take care.